A few years ago, Washington and New Delhi moved closer at high speed. Defense cooperation expanded, joint military exercises were increasing, technology partnerships were growing, and both countries were preparing to operate side by side in the Indo-Pacific. India had taken its place in the Quad, standing alongside the United States, Japan, and Australia. To Washington, this looked like a committed strategic alignment designed to push back against common rivals. But today, the relationship is defined by intense diplomatic friction and aggressive economic standoffs. The shared fear of a rising rival in Asia is no longer enough to keep these two democracies in sync. In August 2026, the U.S. Senate passed legislation that could allow tariffs up to 100% on countries heavily dependent on Russian energy. India falls right into that category. Washington had already used the American consumer market as a weapon a year prior. In 2025, the U.S. imposed tariffs linked to India's continued purchase of Russian oil, pushing India's total tariff burden to 50% at one point. The strategic partnership had turned into a trade war. Then came a diplomatic crisis. U.S. prosecutors alleged involvement by an Indian government-linked individual in a plot to assassinate Gurpatwant Singh Panan, a U.S. citizen and Sikh separatist activist in New York. India rejected any government involvement. These disputes over oil, tariffs, and sovereignty expose a clash between two competing visions for India. Washington operates on a doctrine of strategic alignment. From America's perspective, partners must stand together against strategic competitors, which means cutting off a rival's ability to finance a war. New Delhi operates on the logic of strategic autonomy. India wants the American partnership, but it refuses to become a junior partner in a U.S.-led system. It maintains the freedom to trade with Russia, buy energy from the Middle East, and cooperate with Japan at the same time. This chart shows India's energy reality. India imports 85 to 90% of its crude oil. When Russia offered massive discounts, India bought. For New Delhi, deliberately buying more expensive oil on the global market is an unnecessary economic cost. This graphic visualizes the trade imbalance driving friction with Washington. In 2025, the U.S. imported $103.8 billion in goods from India, but exported only $45.6 billion back. Washington wants to fix this $58 billion deficit by opening India's markets. India wants to protect its own domestic industries. For New Delhi, these are calculated economic trade-offs aimed at sustaining the growth of 1.4 billion people. This insistence on autonomy extends to territorial sovereignty. When Donald Trump spoke about American involvement in the 2025 India-Pakistan ceasefire, India flatly rejected the idea of U.S. mediation. New Delhi insists that regional security decisions belong to India alone. This strategy has deep historical roots. During the Cold War, India maintained close relations with the Soviet Union without joining any formal military bloc. The strategy remains the same: maintain close enough cooperation with everyone to gain benefits, but avoid any relationship close enough to allow foreign control. So if Washington and New Delhi constantly clash over trade, why doesn't America simply walk away? Because of China. Beijing's military is expanding, and its influence across Asia and the Indian Ocean represents America's biggest long-term strategic rival. America needs a counterweight. India sits directly next to China, possesses a powerful military, and holds a nuclear arsenal. For Washington's Indo-Pacific strategy to work, India is a critical strategic anchor. The graph shows a paradox. Washington wants India's power to rise to balance Beijing. But as India grows, its vulnerability to U.S. pressure falls. This rising power grants India a rare advantage: choice. The choice to cooperate with everyone without becoming dependent on anyone. America and India are too important to each other to separate, but too powerful to completely control each other. The defining challenge of the next decade is whether Washington can accept a vital partner that simply refuses to choose a side.